This is It's an Inside Job, and I'm your host, Jason Lim. This is the show where we explore the stories, strategies, and science behind growing resilience, nurturing well-being, and leading with intent. Because when it comes down to it, it's all an inside job. Well, welcome back to It's an Inside Job. I'm your host, Jason Lim. Now, imagine investing over a decade in a single, highly structured identity, only to have it disappear in a single moment due to injury. The practices, the camaraderie, the whole routine is gone, leaving a profound sense of, who am I now? So here's a question to consider. When your primary identity ends, whether it's on the court or in the corner office, how do you successfully find and step into a new, fulfilling purpose in that vacuum between chapters? That's the exact challenge mastered by our guest, Abiola Wabara. She is the founder and CEO of Global Life. Now, Abiola's sojourn began as an Italian-raised NCAA national champion who spent years playing professional basketball across Europe. During her final season in the UK, she strategically secured her master's degree sponsorship from her team. But when 4 surgeries on her right knee forced her into retirement, she traded the basketball court for an intense identity crisis. So in this episode, you're going to walk away with a number of strategies and a number of insights. But among those is a universal strategy for translating your performance identity skills like discipline, teamwork, resilience, into a compelling narrative for any professional field. Also, the critical need to find a creative, separate outlet that provides a fulfillment-proof sense of self, independent of your job title, your professional role. We're also going to be covering why embracing humility and seeking out in-between experiences can be the most powerful way to reconnect with community and to redefine your personal value. And stick with me to the very end because Abiola is going to share the single most powerful realization she had. The idea that basketball was something I did, not who I was, and how this perspective shifts allows you to view any major transition not as a loss, but as a massive opportunity. We all flux between chapters, and when one ends and the other one begins, it's in that transition that many of us get stuck. Many of us can't find traction. And so now let's slip into the stream and meet Abiola Wabara. Abiola, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Could we kick off by you introducing who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Abiola Wabara. I am the founder of Global Life. And by day, I am a product manager, digital consultant, and I am a retired professional basketball player.
Thank you for that. This is, as you know, in our pre-interview, this is part of a series looking into the world of athletics, the mindset, the emotional well-being, and that transition from athlete to, I guess, civilian per se. And I'd like to explore your story because it really hit home to me. Your story and how it has influenced you and where you find yourself in the present day. Could you rewind back and just inform our listeners? Just tell your story to what you did and what sort of has transpired since then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's definitely a topic that is near and dear to me as well. So definitely happy to share about it. So I'm actually originally from Italy. I was born and raised there. So I left after graduating high school to come to the U.S. for the dream of playing in college basketball. So I came, I did that. I was lucky enough that I ended up having a wonderful experience winning a national championship, which is way more than what I was expecting out of the deal. And through that experience, I realized that I would be playing a little longer. So that once I graduated, I decided to continue playing and play professionally. And I started off by playing my first 3 years I played in Israel. Then I moved around, went to Hungary, Spain, back to Italy for a few years. And I was also a member of the Italian national team. And then I finished my career by playing in the UK. And that was a strategic move on my part, meaning that at the time, the British League wasn't as strong as it is today. And it was a little bit different than what the leagues I was used to playing into, but I knew that some teams had relationship with universities. So I actually emailed the coach of the team that I ended up playing for and asked him if, it would be willing to pay for my master's if I played for him in lieu of paying me a salary that I knew that the budget wasn't there for and it wouldn't be what I'm used to. And he did that. So I was able to use, basketball in my advantage to at least give me some type of leverage for what was coming next because I knew that was going to be my last year playing. And so I got my master's in international business management. And once I was done, that's when reality hit that, okay, I don't play basketball anymore, but I really don't know what to do with this master's, don't know what to do next. Don't know how my basketball skills translate because if I were to put together a resume, all it would say would be played here, played here, played here. And I didn't know how to translate those skills. So as a plan B, I decided to enroll or at least take the LSAT and see if I can get into law school. And I actually got accepted, and I wasn't prepared for that either because it was just me testing the waters just to see, like, okay, let's see if this is something I could do. And I was not expecting to get accepted, and I did. But I deferred for a year because I wanted to give myself at least a chance to get a job without going into student debt. So that was the beginning of that transition phase that I realized I was not prepared for.
And so you played 10 years pro ball and then, or maybe a little longer. And then you shifted because you just retired, not because of injury, but out of choice.
It was a choice driven by injury. So my knees
Okay.
were at the point where I couldn't longer play at the level that I expected of myself. My play was very, very driven by my athleticism, and I wasn't able to be as athletic and as active as I used to be because of injuries. My right knee, I had 4 surgeries, and
Okay.
yeah, so at that point, it was really letting me know that, look, you're in your 30s now, and we're not functioning as well as we used to. So I had to start making some strategic moves to plan to get out of my term and not to be like a career-ending injury, but it was driven by injury, knocking at the door at that point.
And it sounds like you had the whole structure as an athlete. You have a whole infrastructure that's built around your career and a sense of community. And that's what I've learned from previous interviews. I mean, when you decided to retire, how did the first few weeks of retirement feel to you? I mean, when did you realize, oh, the structure is gone? Maybe you can walk us through your kind of mindset there and that sort of transition.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty depressing, if I'm being honest. And then aside from the structure, right? Because obviously, as an athlete, especially as a pro athlete, you have a schedule. You have practice at this time. You might have lunch at this time. You might have team lunch or team dinner because sometimes they're trying to have some bonding experiences. But you have a day that's pretty set around your working schedule, which is your practices and your games. But also from a being a functional adult perspective, everything is done for you, right? If I
Mm.
have a fever, I will call my manager, like, hey, I don't feel well. Can you please send a doctor to the house? Or, when I play on a different team, they give me a car. I'm assuming that comes with insurance because I never had to go and shop for insurance, right? Or pay
Yeah.
for it.
Mm.
Everything comes given to you. So I found myself being an adult that was not functioning in an adult manner because I never had to. And so that was one thing that was that was a wake up call because there were certain things that I realized that, wait, why don't I know this? Is that, oh, because I never had to do it myself. Or, also being alone all of a sudden, right? And this might sound really, really weird, but when you have a locker room of friends and things like that, even just something silly as taking a shower while having a conversation with someone else, now you're taking a shower at home and it's always you. And it's not about the shower per se, but it was just that was a camaraderie. That was another situation where it's like the locker room is bonding with your teammates, being silly, talking about anything. And now you find yourself being alone with every single thing that you do
Mm.
versus before you always had, or at least, in basketball is a team sport. So you always had a teammate or two because sometimes your teammates are not your friends, they're just your colleagues. But most of the times you make friendships that are long, like lifelong, and they become sisterhoods.
Yeah.
And it becomes lonely when you first get out of that structure, because now it's really just you.
So this mental shift from intense, structured team lifestyle to being alone and building your own schedule. I mean, that must have been huge. I've never experienced something like that. Maybe when I was, a younger adult and I moved from home to university for first time, there's a big shift there. But I don't think that's anything compared to what you're talking about. So, what would you say the biggest mindset hurdle was that you faced? Was it the loneliness, and I don't want to say isolation, just being by yourself, or was it something else?
I think it was more so, for me, it was more so something else, because I was lucky enough to where some of my best friends were also basketball players, and, I went to college with them. So they were here in Houston. So we were able to get together. Like, I would literally just go sit on their couch in the middle of the day because we didn't have jobs, so at least we were commiserating together. But I think the biggest shift for me was really trying to figure out who I was, because I was so used to saying, "Hey, who are you?" "Oh, I'm a basketball player." But now, were you Abiola that used to play basketball? Like, I was trying to figure out what else I could tie my identity to. And I think the biggest shift was realizing that basketball was something that I did, not who I was, but it felt like who I was for the longest, because that's all I had. Put all of my, you know, effort and passion and just sweat and tears into up until that point. And so that I think that was the biggest shift for me, trying to figure out who I was without basketball.
Again, there's a common denominator here. Talking to the other athletes, it's the same thing. They have this. It wasn't the only identity, but it was the dominant
Yes.
identity that was housed in their head. And in your case, Abiola, the elite pro ball player, basketball and such. I mean, maybe we've covered a little of this already, but how did you navigate this inevitable identity crisis that I guess that comes with losing that dominant defining title?
Yeah. So I think one thing that helped me is I'm a very ambitious and curious person. So while playing, I will find other things to explore. So I always like painting. That's something I was done since I was a kid, and that was something that I could do regardless to what team, what country I was in. So I remember my second year playing in Israel, I went to find a art studio that was offered by a local artist to learn how to paint with oil, because up until that point I only painted in acrylics. So art was something that I was able to use as a mind shift. Because, for example, when I play basketball, I was a very, very aggressive basketball player, like defensive player. But personality-wise, I'm very soft-spoken. I'm very chill. I'm not an aggressive person. And painting was something that would help me decompress and kind of come back to who I am as a human being, not as an athlete. And over time, I started realizing that a lot of people like my artwork. And at first, I always thought that, no, you like it just because you're a basketball fan. I'm not really that good and things like that. But a lot of the fans encouraged me to start showing my artwork. So when I played in Italy, I actually had my first solo show. So now I'm Abiola, the artist, basketball player, and artist, because now every country I go and play to, somehow they knew that. And so that was something that helped me see that I had more to offer as far as who I was, by adding another talent that I wasn't really sharing with anyone before, until I got that boost of confidence for folks from people around me.
Yeah, because when we look at art, art is very individual, of course, how we see something. Everyone can see the exact same thing. I like sketching. I do a lot of sketching, and sometimes what I sketch doesn't really look like what it is in reality, but it's my interpretation on that, just
Yeah.
using a light hand, right? Pen and ink. But would you say the art was a vehicle for you to kind of heal, to expand the flexibility of how you defined yourself or your self-worth?
Oh, 100%. Yes, I would definitely say so, because I was able to create a space that was just mine, like my interpretation, my creation, my timing. That was a time where I'm pretty introvert. I like to call myself a functional introvert. Like, I can be around people, but
High
after a while
functioning introvert. Yeah.
I need to, step away and
Yeah.
recharge. And the art, the painting, that was my recharge. That was my plugging in the battery for Abiola and just get back to be whole again. So
Yeah.
I would say that art was definitely a good escape for me to start feeling something other than I'm no longer art. I'm no longer a basketball player, or I'm no longer this or the other.
Art can be an escape. It can be a form of healing, a form of therapy, because we can we can process emotions and thoughts through paintbrush or through pen or through sculpting and such. I think it's a very healthy endeavor. But you, Biola, you've been painting since you said you were a little girl.
Mhm.
But at some point, was it in Israel when you went from acrylics to, I think you said oil painting, that you started embracing more of the sort of the artist identity? Was
I
it
think
like,
so.
I guess what I'm asking is a two-part question. Before, the artist in you was always there, but you didn't really identify with that part. It was just a hobby. But
Yeah.
then somewhere along the line, it became a more dominant part of your identity.
Yeah, I would say I don't think it was Israel per se. That was
Okay.
still more on a hobby and me like learning how to use oil and falling in love with it. I think the first time I felt like an artist was when I was playing in Spain, because when they did at the beginning of the year, they always do, different teams do an article to introduce the new team and things like that. And so when they did the article introducing me, they took pictures of some of the paintings that I had made while I was in Spain. So they introduced me as the uh, basketball player artist. And I was like, oh, I like that. So I'm actually an artist now. And so that was
Okay.
kind of how that
Yeah.
solidified for me, just seeing pictures of my artwork on the newspaper in
Wow.
Spain.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So do you still have art shows and such every
I
occasionally?
do, yeah, not as much as I used to, because I've been immersing myself into trying to build a global life. But
Mm.
I did a show last 2 weeks ago, because October 1st was Nigerian Independence Day. So they
Okay.
have a Nigerian festival because Houston is the biggest population of Nigerians outside of Nigeria. So they had a festival and there were, different vendors, and I was invited to be one of the vendors for art. So I had a few pieces there for that.
Great. Well, congrats for that. If
Thank
we could
you.
just rewind back to your pro days, when, as you said, you've received some injuries and such, and you were, I guess, out for a period of time. Did those injuries, how did those injuries affect you when you couldn't play ball?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the majority of the long-term not playing injury
Mm,
happened in college. And that was actually really tough because that was my first time living in the US, like living home.
mm,
And the culture shock was incredible. But not being able to play made it even more so isolating because now I really don't want to be here. Now I don't like it. Like I'm not playing. I'm not having fun with basketball. It's this weird country. I don't understand some of the slang because I grew up speaking British English, so I didn't know half of what anyone was saying.
mm.
And so the injury made it harder to bond with my teammates initially because I was on the sideline. I wasn't traveling with the team. But, that didn't last very long, obviously. Like, obviously, I stayed there for 4 years, right? So I ended up
Yes,
liking
yes.
it. But I think that was the first time that I felt a little bit isolated, even though I was in a team.
Mm,
Every other injury that came after that, I already knew majority of my team, or I think I was in Italy most of the time. So, I didn't have as much of a gap, or I didn't
yeah.
feel as isolated, but also the recovery time was a lot shorter. So I knew I was going to go back and play. I knew I was going to join the team soon enough. So I think missing out my freshman year, I didn't play my freshman year because of injury. That was
Mm.
that was the isolating. I was the isolating experience.
Did it kind of, again, this may be a stretch of a question, Abiola, but do you feel it affected your sense of self worth or who you were when you were laid up, recuperating?
Oh yeah, because one thing that I was afraid of was I wonder if I'm going to keep my scholarship now that I'm hurt. Like am I going to get kicked off the
Mm.
team because I'm hurt and I can't play? Because I didn't necessarily knew how
System
what the
worked?
process was.
Yeah,
Yeah, how it
okay.
worked. So I didn't know that. That's on. I mean, technically, when you get a scholarship, the coach can decide that the next year they don't want you back. They can rescind the scholarship at any
Yeah.
time. But obviously, there's also a human aspect behind it. But technically, they could. But I didn't know how that worked. So I was very nervous because I had torn my ACL in Italy before going over back to playing. And so when I emailed the coach, I was like, "Oh my God, I hurt myself. I'm so sorry. I don't know." She's like, "That's fine. Just worry about the paperwork to come to school. The knee's gonna heal. We have, we're gonna do rehab and things like that." And then when I did come to school, I had to have another surgery in the same knee. So I missed the first year. And yeah, I was afraid I was going to be left behind. I wouldn't be as athletic as I was before the surgery, that I wouldn't be able to help my team. I wouldn't be able to play. I wouldn't become a starter. Like those are all things that I'm thinking about that I felt like I didn't sacrifice to come here to sit on the bench. I didn't sacrifice to come here and not play. So that first year was a little tough and definitely had thoughts about quitting a few times.
Sure. So, I mean, there may be some listeners here, some are young athletes who are part of a team right now, are or just starting, and maybe they're not injured, or maybe they are injured. I mean, what were some of the skills or the mental tips that you use to try to stay on top of the uncertainty, to stay on top of the doubt or the lowering of self-worth when you were dealing with so many questions?
Yeah. I think one thing that I would say is finding other ways to be useful to your team, right? Like become the biggest cheerleader, become the loudest one on the bench. I don't know, give tips on to a teammate. Like now you're looking at the game from the outside looking in. So maybe start thinking like a coach. I'm not a coach. I have zero coaching desires. But at that point, like, I don't know if my teammate is taking a shot under the basket, I'm like, hey, I think that shot would have been better if you kept the ball up instead of bringing it down and then up, or things like that. I think that shows that you are there for the right reasons, right? Like
Yeah.
you are a teammate. You're not selfishly just thinking about, oh, I can't play, so I don't care about what's going on here. You still find a way to make yourself a good teammate, make yourself coachable by your coaches because you're still doing rehab, you're still working out, and you need to make sure that you do that in a way that will get you back on the court. So I think those will be the two things: just be coachable and be a good teammate. Be present even if it feels heavy that you can't do the things that you would like to do. Still be, a shoulder for your teammates that are going through it.
And I guess instead of just you are in a sense sitting on the sideline. At the same time, what I understand is that you're pulling yourself into the community. You're being proactive to be part of the community, even though you can't be on, bouncing the ball on the court. You can still be part of there supporting. Is that what I understand?
100%, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, because I mean, you're still part of the team, right? You're just not on the floor, but you are on the sideline, so you can cheer. Your hands work, so you can clap your hands. You can yell. You can do everything that makes you part of the team. And encouraging your teammate is a big aspect. Because honestly, there are 12 people on the bench. Three or four of them probably never play, even if they have never been injured. And they're still, they're still teammates. They still work out hard. They still do the same thing. So when you're injured, you pretty much become a bench fixture. So how do you make yourself a good teammate? So that's
Did,
what I
so
think.
when you were in there, did you ever was it just more, did you ever feel any depression or anxiety or anything during these years? Or was that something that really never sat with you? It was just more sort of the mood you've been articulating or describing?
Yeah, no, definitely not depression. Maybe a little bit of anxiety, more so, like I said, as far as, oh man, am I going to be able to
Sure.
get back to my full, athletic abilities? Will I play? Will I be a starter? Will I still have an impact on this team? So that was more of a, yeah, on the personal side, more of an anxiety there. But depression, I think that came once I retired. That was something I experienced after everything was said and done.
Okay. So I'd like to, again, back to the future, forward a little to the point of your retirement. In our pre-interview, you talked about how starting over requires immense humility. I was wondering if you could elaborate and speak to that.
Yes. Yes. So definitely that was one big lesson, right? Because at that point, after playing for 10 plus years, I was never like a superstar on any team, but I was always a player that, I had my individual accolades, won a lot. I've started on every team I ever played on. So I was a teammate, a player that coaches respected and that was needed. And now and I was good at what I did, right? And now all of a sudden I'm finding myself in a place where I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm definitely not good at it. And so I had to humble myself, right? My first year after retirement and after getting my master's, I was literally just driving Uber. I was a personal trainer at Equinox, 24-hour fitness. I was selling artwork at any art market I could find. So I really had to take a step back and realize I was doing jobs that were not necessarily on my list of what I will be doing after basketball for sake of, bills don't stop. Just because I'm not playing anymore, I still have bills. But so I had to humble myself to be able to do these jobs, especially like Uber, for example. That was a big struggle for me because I hate driving and I hate small talk. And that's literally all it is. And it was really tough. That there were some days I was like, please come on this car, don't talk to me. Like it was not yeah. And I think that's the first time I experienced a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
And there was another job that I took. I was a interpreter, over the phone interpretation, from Italian to English for medical, banking, things like that. And absolutely hated that job because I was a robot. I was just repeating what someone was saying one language to the other. And it didn't require a lot of mental abilities, which is something I pride myself into. And that was another humbling experience because I applied for this job. I have a master, I've been a champion all my life, and my coworkers don't even have a high school diploma, right? And not saying that that's anything wrong with that, but in my mind, I'm like, dang, I didn't need to do all of that for this job, right? So I had to humble myself in the sense of remove myself from the situation, just think about what the goal of this is. And for me, the goal was having these jobs that were not committal, that give me a chance to find a job that I wanted to actually be in, which did happen while
Yes.
driving Uber. So, but
So
that's
what did you
that's
learn about yourself from, selling art at, small art fairs, driving Uber, being a translator, working as a personal trainer? I mean, all these jobs, they provided some level of income. So as you said, so I could pay my bills. But what
yeah.
did you learn about yourself, moving laterally from these sort of side hustles?
So one thing I did learn is I relate to people well. Even though I'm not a people person, I relate to people well. I am able to meet you where you at. And I think basketball has a big part of that, right? Because especially from playing internationally, I'm able to relate with you from a cultural perspective. If you are from a different country, I'm able to relate with you from an age perspective because I don't know, I feel like as athletes, I feel like we are younger, a lot longer in our minds. So I think what I find out, it was my relatability to people at every different levels of where they are in life, where they are economically, where they have educationally. I don't find myself feeling that I'm bigger or smaller than any one person. And I think that was the biggest lesson for me because up until that time, I always been around peers, right?
Yes.
I never really had to find out what being around other folks felt like or what type of conversation I could have with someone else. And so these experiences, while some of them more painful than others, like small talk in Uber, definitely taught me that. And it was fun. 'Cause one cool example while driving Uber, this man came in the car and he couldn't speak English. And his name sounded Italian, but it could have been, Spanish or Portuguese or whatever. So I was
Sure.
like, okay, like, try, speak your language to me and see what happens. So it was Brazilian, so he spoke Portuguese. And I found out I understood it because I speak Spanish, I speak Italian. I did not speak Portuguese, but I understood what he said. So I was like, okay, we can communicate. And
Yeah.
long story short, it was a famous artist in Brazil. So we exchanged information. We actually met for coffee at the museum in Houston, and he taught me some more Portuguese. But that was never something that I would have seen myself do while playing basketball because I would never had to be in that position. So that to me was okay. Look at me being, open and meeting people and just be more relatable. So I think that was a big lesson for me.
Now, before we dive into the second half of my conversation with Abiola, I want to anchor the three most crucial, practical takeaways she shared with us for anyone facing a major life pivot. The first is this: cultivate an identity anchor. In the case of Abiola, she just didn't pick up a hobby. She developed her painting to deliberately reconnect with her true personality and away from her on-court identity. The insight here is to find a creative outlet that is completely separate from your career, providing a more fulfillment-proof sense of self. Second point is the humility reset. She took jobs like driving for Uber or working as a translator. This required significant humility, but became invaluable. It forced her to engage and relate to people without the shield of a professional athletic title. The lesson? Embrace the in-between jobs because they can build community skills that matter more than any title. And third, strategic contribution during downtime. Abiola's approach to injuries was to avoid isolation by becoming the biggest cheerleader and offering strategic advice from the bench. This taught her how to stay valuable and connected to the team even when she couldn't perform, a skill critical for anyone transitioning in a professional environment. Now, these three elements, the anchor, the humility reset, and the strategic contribution, well, they are the foundations for navigating the toughest parts of identity loss. Now, let's slip back into the stream for the second part of my conversation with Abiola Wabara. I'd like to segue in our conversation now towards your current initiative, Global Life, as Global Life, but Global Life. Could you tell us a little more about it and what brought you to the point where thinking, yeah, this is what I want to start creating?
Yeah, absolutely. So Global Life started off as a idea when I first retired. Funny enough, it was completely different initially. Like the idea was something that no longer exists now. But over time, it shifted because during my transition to life after sports, I realized that I didn't know what I didn't know, but also I didn't know where to go and find those answers to the things I didn't know, right? I mean, yes, I could Google a lot of things, but they were not tailored to me as an athlete. I was like, if I'm looking for a job, me, person that played basketball for 10 years versus person that had different jobs that lead up to the job they're looking for is a very different experience, right? So me competing with general population with getting a job, they will have the right information on their resume to obviously be ahead of me. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, this can't possibly be just me. So I started doing interviews, like similar to what we're doing now, like little short podcasts, talking to a lot of athletes and asking them about their experience. And pretty much it was a broken record. We all had the same experience over and over and over. And that was the validation for me that we needed to build something that was specific for athletes to help us transition to life after sports by giving the right resources and access to those resources in a very simple way. Like I wanted to create a platform that provided 360-degree support to the athlete so that you don't have to go and search like high and low for how do I build my resume when it's only sports, or what type of jobs actually will hire me knowing that I don't have this much experience and things like that. So that was the catalyst of me wanting to build Global Life because it's needed. I feel like there are more avenues now that are tailored to helping athletes, and I feel because sports is becoming a lot more popular. But this concept is being in the making for the past 8 years, really. But this past 2 years is where I implemented the technology aspect to make it what I'm hoping it will become moving forward.
Yeah, because I see a lot of sort of similarities to people who've been in a particular job that could be 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. All of a sudden, for whatever reason, they've moved on, they've transitioned, and they haven't had to apply for a job. And it's all of these questions. Okay, well, how do I build a CV? How do I build a resume? Where do I go? Where do I start looking for jobs? Because I haven't had to for 2 decades.
Right.
In those ecosystems, yes, there are a lot of services that can supplement and help people to answer those questions. But as athletes, as you said, everything was done for me. When I was sick, I'd call the coach. They sent a doctor. they give me a car and I had expected there'd be insurance. I didn't have to think about all that. And why would
Yeah.
you? It's all about training and, performance and
Yeah.
recovery. And then bang, it's poof. It all disappears and you're standing there by yourself. And again, I've never experienced anything to that level. So this resources sound very important. So this could be building resumes. It could be where do I go for this? Where to go? What other sort of key resources or sources of information does your global life uh, provide?
Yeah. So the way we created it, we wanted to make sure it was an intersection of human-centered and technology, right? Because everything is going towards technology now, but
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like humans are still needed for certain things. So we have a list of vetted service providers that the athletes can reach out to on the platform, and it's literally like a marketplace. They will see the provider based on what they need. So we have financial education, mental health, career coaches, resume building, interview coaching, and entrepreneurship. Because not everyone wants a job. Some people might will start their own business and they need to know how, right?
Mm,
So that's like the people that can reach out to. Then on the other end, we're building relationship with companies that are actively looking to hire athletes. So what we're trying to do is build this relationship. They would post jobs on our platform, knowing that the audience is 100% athletes.
mm,
So the athletes can apply to jobs knowing that they're not competing with general population, but they're competing with other athletes, but they know that the company in itself is aware that they have a diverse background and they might not have all the same experience, but they come with specific skill set like leadership and resilience that they are looking for. So those are the main two pillars. And then on the third side, we are trying to partner with universities for college athletes to help them that transition. Because even if you don't go pro, those 4 to 6 years that you play college in sports, that's a job. Right? Regular students go and do internships during the summertime,
yeah.
you're training. When most athletes go home during winter break, literally campus is all athletes in the winter break because everyone else goes home and whatever. You are training. So being able to build this relationship with universities to support the athletes after the transition,
Mm.
to be more of like alumni support system, right? Because you want to have, your athletes should be successful when they're done. Not just because they were good on the field, but okay, thank you for your service and goodbye. I don't think that's the best model. But thank you for your service, and this is how we will continue supporting you. That's what we're trying to put together with them.
I think that's a brilliant resource. It's a brilliant idea where it's a one-stop shop where you can help as fundamental as building a resume
Yeah.
to searching what do I need to build a business as an entrepreneur? How do I financially educate myself? And it becomes a central hub where people can network and connect. And I love the idea of the
Thank you.
universities or corporations or organizations that are specifically in the market for athletes to bring them on board. And it's one stop shop. That's the only way I can call it. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
that's
it's
absolutely
it's a
right.
great central location. So that's global life. But then you've also talked about global pass.
Yeah.
What
So
is
Global
global
Pass
pass?
is planning after sports success. So it's specifically the platform where all of these things are happening. So Global Life is the overall company, right? With the different resources and blogs and things like that. But Global Pass is the ecosystem. So that's the technology piece. There is the ecosystem where the athletes can create their profile. They will have a roadmap, and this roadmap will show you what steps to take based on what your goals are. So if your goal is I want to do better with my money and I want to get a job, now we'll know, okay, financial education and career coaching are your two main priorities. So we'll give you suggestion based on that. We'll recommend the service provider you should talk to for career coaching. Talk
Mm,
to Emily. She's one of our service providers and she can help you with these initial steps. You have a job interview, you want to practice,
mm,
this is who you should talk to for have a mock interview and things like that. So the Global Pass is the platform within Global Life. And right now it's only a web application, but our
mm.
goal is to create a phone app so that you can, work on like do things on the go, like get notification if a new job pops up, you can see it right away and things like that. So it's definitely a work in progress.
The global, would that suggest it's open to all athletes, or is it more athletes from the States? Or
It's open to all athletes. We are starting in the States just because we're located here. So
Yes.
building relationship with companies, etc., is here. We have some advisors from different places. So one of our advisors is basically is between Texas and Mexico, and so he's been letting us know that there's a lot of opportunities in Argentina, for example. So hopefully South America will be our immediate next pipeline. But the idea is to be global, right? And that was part of the play on, global.
Yeah, I
Because
really liked it.
thank
That's why I
you.
had to emphasize
Yeah.
the ball
We
part.
want to be able to help athletes everywhere because it's the same. It doesn't matter where you're from or what level. Is the same experience. Once you are an athlete and that's all you're focusing on, the experience is very similar across the board.
So your work bridges purpose, identity, and impact. And so, from the perspective, if I was a young athlete or an athlete coming out of my back into civilian life, what would you say, Abiola, is the most important lesson you'd want an athlete who's planning their next move? What do you think is the most important for them to internalize right now?
I think it's two things. One, you're not alone in this because it feels like a very lonely process, and you start to feel like you're not smart enough or like you just don't know anything and you're just worthless. No, it's not a you problem. It's just we are not set up for success afterwards. So one, I would say you are not alone in this. So do not think that you are the problem because you're not. And then the second thing I would say, start thinking about what else keeps you up at night, what else gets you excited outside your sports while you're playing, right? Because I feel like it will help the transition afterwards. So, and I think nowadays, especially with social media and stuff like that, a lot of athletes already start to brand themselves. So they have an idea of, oh, I want to be in fashion, I want to be in this and that. So those things can help propel the transition forward once you're done because it's something that you're already passionate about. Because it's really hard to find a next career that's going to make you feel as high as you do during your sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe if you can start thinking about it while you're playing, like, what else I'm excited about? Oh, I'm excited about playing with dogs. Oh, maybe I want to start a rescue, or maybe I want to work at a training center for dogs. Things like that. I think that would help.
I think reinvention is going to be a word that more and more of us are going to have to adopt and understand what that means because as technology, machine learning, AI, everything comes online in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years span, a lot of people will find themselves being forced to transition or will wanting to transition. And it is about reinventing. And so what you're addressing, you may be at the forefront per se, specifically focused on athletes per se
Mm.
or retired athletes. But I think this is going to be something that many of us are going to have to be thinking about, in the coming years, if not the coming months, as
Yeah.
fast as machine learning is moving into our world, into our ecosystem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I find myself now having to try and carve time to learn more about, product management with AI and things like that, right? Because it's part of my day-to-day job. And so I agree with what you were saying that reinvention is going to be a big thing for a lot of people.
So if we just hovered on that for a second, reinvention, because maybe there is a better word, but that's what I'm pulling up right now. So it's staying humble. It's also being cognizant to other passions, other things that kind of light your fire. What else do you think from your own experience, Abiola, that has helped you shift to a more constructive mindset in order to reinvent yourself as you have?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one big thing is finding people that you trust, finding mentors, and making sure that you're not the smartest one in the room,
Mm.
right? Because if you are in the wrong room, run, because there's no way you should be the smartest one in the room. So for me, reinventing myself was also trying to find people that were where I wanted to be and ask them, how did you get there? And just start learning and just kind of get pulled like breadcrumbs from different directions to carve my path. Literally like grit and a pencil, just get a piece of bread from you, thank you, and just start making like my little path towards
Yeah.
my direction. But yeah, that would be my biggest thing is you can learn something from anyone. Even a kid can teach you something, right? My thing is make sure you pick up on what they're putting down, right? Like be open to learn, be open to learn from anyone, and make sure that if you are in a room that at that point you feel like, I learned everything in this room, I'm the smartest one. Okay, no, go find another room. That would
Okay.
be my suggestion on how to reinvent yourself and how I did it for myself.
Thank you for that. This may be a little bit of a curveball question, and I don't know if it's something you can answer. Usually, we have to be in a buoyant mindset. We need to be at some sort of leveled mindset where we can start thinking about new opportunities and possibilities. But when our identity is being kind of erased, per se, as we make a transition, or we're in the middle of chapter, or we're in the in between of chapters of our life, we can be, as you've articulated today, you can be plagued by uncertainty and loneliness. Is your platform, Global Life, a place where an athlete can go to help them work out some of these wet balls of string to try to tease things apart, to find direction?
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to make sure that we had a mental health pillar, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's really important. Like my transition, I think, was the first time I went to a mental health provider to just talk through things
Yeah.
because life was getting a little dark.
Mm.
And so that was the first time I felt the need. Actually, it was probably one of the first time I actually believed in what depression was. Because you hear about it, but it's okay, you're sad because you cannot understand what someone is saying, right?
Mm.
But once you leave it, once you experience it, that, oh, now I get it. It's beyond sadness. There's something that you cannot explain, and it's
Mm.
hard to pull yourself out of it. So that was my first time going to therapy. So I wanted to make sure that having service providers that were licensed therapists are included on our platform, because it's important to be able to get that support. And additionally to that, while it's not implemented yet, but we're looking to build a like a community, right? Some sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? Some sort of board where athletes can find themselves. You can create your group. You can find, if you want to meet other basketball players, or you want to meet other baseball players, or you want to
Mm.
meet athletes in your state or your city, you can start building those communities. We don't have that yet because we wanted to focus on your core issues as an individual, but we do realize that having that community aspect is also going to be important. So that's is on our pipeline of things we want to add, but it hasn't been our main focus for now. But that would be, yeah, that's definitely what we want to make sure that we include as far as the services in, the athlete as a whole, like
Mm.
body, mind, and soul, because all those things come with you, whatever your phase of your life are.
If we could just make a little shift here, I'd like to come back to yourself. How important it is, would you recommend to people to seek out, mental professionals when they're kind of stuck with rumination or overthinking or negative thinking or just completely lost in the fog of uncertainty?
Is very, very important. And I'm one of the stubborn ones. Like it really took some. I kind of scared myself, and I was like, you know what? Let me just go talk to somebody because
Mm.
I don't know this mood. I don't like it. It's scary. And it definitely was helpful. I feel like finding the right person is like dating. Not every mental health provider will be the right fit for you. Find out, keep going until you find the person that feels like a safe space, feels like you can express yourself in full, someone that can understand your journey, right? Because
Mm.
not everyone has the same background, you
Mm.
know. I have a therapist right now that I talk to her once a month, and I'm not going through anything major at the moment, but it's like a sanity check, right? Like someone that I can go to, bounce some ideas against, and just making sure that I'm keeping myself level-headed.
Mm.
I tend to overwhelm myself because I want to do everything under the sun. So I have my job, I have global life, I have my art, I have my dog. It's like my child. And
Mm.
she always asks me, so what did you do for yourself? And I think
Mm.
about it. It's like, wait, what do you mean? It's like, I go to the gym, like, no, but what do you do for you? So she helps me kind of like take a step back and think about, okay, I do need to chill for a second and do something for Abiola, and not just for global life or for my job or for my dog or for the art business, like just for me. And that's been helpful because I can run myself to the ground very easily. So all this to say that I think it is very important to find. someone that you can talk to and that you can feel comfortable doing so.
Cheers. Thank you for that. Last question before we're coming to close to the top of the hour. I'm very respectful of your time, Abiola. What is the key takeaway about life after sport that you want our listeners in our audience today to walk away with?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that athletes are almost seen as shiny objects, right? While they're at their prime, they're the coolest thing, the best things in sliced bread. And once they're done, the shining just poof disappears. Everyone forgets you exist, right? So imagine being that person, right? Like all of a sudden your brightness is gone. And that takes a toll on you. It's a hard place to be in, and it's not talked about enough. And, the only time you hear about it is when it's a highlight on the news of either athletes that became homeless or an athlete that, had a mental crisis and they did something absolutely insane. That is not out of the blue. That's something that led up to that, but they did not have the support to be able to navigate life after sports. So I think, if you have an athlete in your life, the understanding of the stage is, if their lash out is not you, it's literally the internal battle with themselves, but also help, younger athletes, kids when they first start into sports, not become immersed into that sport in a way that takes away their identity. Like find other things that will make you feel whole when everything is said and done. Because once the sports is done, it's hard. So that would be a thing that I would say that is it's a pandemic, I guess I could call it, right? Because every single athlete goes through it, but we can get help, and the help is there.
That's a great way of describing it. If one of our listeners want to reach out to you, Abiola, or to Global Life, what would be the best way they could reach you?
Oh, yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn under Abiola Wabara. That would be the easiest. Or our Instagram is at global_life. And then globallife.com is our website. And then, and my email is on all of those platforms. So that would be the way we can find us.
I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes. Abiola, I just want to say big kudos for your efforts out there to create community and resources for people who definitely need it.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me today. This was a great conversation.
Thanks, Abiola. If you've ever felt lost after a major career or life shift, I hope Abiola's story gives you the permission you need to be messy, to explore, and to redefine success on your own terms. We talked about everything from the challenges of her 4 knee surgeries to the crucial need for mental health support, which she calls monthly sanity checks. Now, the single most powerful shift in perspective Abiola shared, well, the one that turned her transition from a struggle into more of a triumph, is this. You must learn to embrace your ability to connect with others and view yourself as part of a larger community, rather than continually comparing yourself to your former peers or your former self. Why does this matter? Because when you're comparing yourself, you're looking backward and judging your new path against an old, fixed measure. But when you actively work to reconnect and connect and contribute, the way she did driving Uber or working as an interpreter, you tap into the humility, diverse experience, and support that opens up entirely new doors. She realized that basketball was something that I did, not who I was. And the lesson is, you don't need to be the brightest, shiny object anymore. You need to be the most connected and contributing human, per se. A huge thank you to you, Abiola, for sharing your time, your vulnerability, and the incredible work you're doing with Global Life and Global Pass. Any one of us can get connected and fixated with a particular identity, a job, a title, whatever. And that becomes rigid and brittle. And if we cling too tight with it, if we don't increase the context of our identity, and that can leave us vulnerable in the worst sense. The idea of reinvention, of restarting, of increasing who we are, not linking our self-worth just to one identity, well, that's the essence of mental and emotional resilience. So I hope Abiola's story has really struck something, resonated, chimed with you, especially if you are in transition, that you find yourself in between chapters of your life. Because we all do, and that's completely normal. And sometimes it does take time, effort, investment to reconnect with ourselves and to find a new way forward. Folks, if this episode resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next conversation. And if you know someone navigating a pivot, a new job, a new city, a new phase of life, share this episode with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear. And until next time, keep well, keep strong, and we'll speak soon.